So welcome everyone to, I guess, episode 4 now of Mental Roots. My name is Nathan Aday. I've just graduated from an undergraduate course in animation. So I'm a huge fan in animation. I'm just a huge creative fan in general. And at the moment, I'm working on a commissioned short film, which is focused on the Black British experience. And it's meant to empower, especially young Black Brits, young Black British men, to be honest about their experiences with mental health, and for us just to have dialogue. And that's the short film I'm working on at the moment. And so to promote that, I'm doing this podcast, Mental Roots, where I chop it up with a few experts in different fields of expertise to have their perspective on mental health, which I'm using as research to aid this animated film, which is being commissioned by the BBC. And today I have a great guest with me. In fact, I'm so happy with this guy's work. I don't think I can do him justice with my introduction. So I'll let him introduce himself. His name is Leo Flowers. And Leo, just take it away. Just introduce yourself to the listeners and what you do.
Man, first of all, I'm so honored to be one of the first guests on your podcast. This is incredible. It's remarkable. I love what you're doing. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to be able to reach a British audience and connect with people overseas. I'm in San Diego currently hanging out. My name is Leo Flowers. I also have a podcast. It's a suicide prevention podcast called Before You Kill Yourself. And it's just a title that is a reminder that there's a small window between stimulus and response, between you wanting to end your life and you wanting to thrive and live. And so there's stories, psychologists, et cetera, on the podcast sharing their stories and ideas. I'm also a comedian. I've performed in London at the Comedy Store and other places, and I was planning my comeback trip before this quarantine hit. So we'll find ways to connect with my British brethren over there. And then also life coach. You go to thrivewithleo.com. That's where you can get a one-on-one experience with yours truly. Because I'm on this podcast because with all the things that I've been able to do throughout my life, from playing college football, playing in a bowl game, traveling the world. I've been to 5 continents, with only Australia and Antarctica not yet conquered, but we're going to make that happen somehow. But even with all those different things that I've been able to do throughout my life, there are internal struggles and battles, as we all have. And so my purpose in life is so that you don't feel lonely, so that you don't feel like you are the only one going through what you're going through. We all are experiencing it on some level. So I just want to highlight those voices so we can all feel more connected.
That's awesome, Leo. Thank you for your time. And again, this is a very early podcast. There's probably not many people listening at the moment, but I'm optimistic that will increase. And as the people look back in the archive, they'll really enjoy this interview. So yeah, like you heard in the introduction, I'm nobody famous, but I just have a passion to use media and different creative outlets that I like to just number one, to positively inspire people. So I am Christian as well. That kind of influences some of the stuff I do, but I do have a passion to really speak to lots of different types of people and just make more meaningful content. And as I said, I do that through animation. I've started doing podcasting. I've got another podcast called #Faith Talk, which is where I talk to different people from different faiths. It's mostly been other Christians, but I've spoken to some Muslims as well, and not just what they believe, but how living out their faith feels like in the 21st century, especially in Western society. How do they balance that with the different social pressures and things like that? So that's another podcast I'm 1 year deep into. And yeah, I'm just excited. I'm very much at the start of my, I guess, media journey, and I'm excited to see where it's heading. So thank you for your time. And just to give you a heads up on what I've been listening to, I've listened to not probably just 2 episodes of your podcast, but in depth. So I listened to your chat with Tarek Trotter and Dr. Lulu. You probably remember those
Yeah,
conversations. Great
absolutely.
content, very deep, very great guests, very inspirational stories and insights as well. Um, I guess we'll get to that later, but I want to start with your story. I want to start with just your journey growing up. Have you always lived in San Diego, or did you grow up in another part of America? Just kind of take us through your experience growing up as a Black American, and just kind of your first exposure to the whole idea of mental health. Because I feel like, first of all, as Black people, the term mental health isn't really our way of describing how we feel. I think we have our own dialogue, and obviously, the incredible thing about being Black is that there's so many variations of it. The way you speak in, parts of diaspora like America is very much different to the way we might articulate ourselves in Britain and elsewhere in the world as well. So just kind of chop up, how you grew up and your first sort of exposure to the term mental health, or to the term, or to things like being vulnerability and things like that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for the question.
Mm,
I grew up always feeling accepted, but never a part of. And what I mean is, I'm from Chicago, the North Side, which is a very
mm.
diverse area of Chicago. Uh, I grew up in a Section 8 building, which is like
Right.
people who need financial assistance,
Mm,
So everybody in the building was there because of some government assistance
mm.
and credit, and not feeling like I was in poverty,
Yeah.
but aware of poverty, aware of what that looks like, aware of,
Mm.
there'd be like drug needles that I had to sweep off the stairs so that
Wow.
my sister wouldn't step on it. I have a sister who's 4 years younger than me, and I would get up early on the weekends. For some reason, they were always there on the weekends in the building, and I
Mm,
would wake up early Saturday morning and sweep those off, and I would paint the walls in the hallways because there would be graffiti, things like that.
mm.
But although I grew up in a building that was a Section 8 building, I also grew up in a neighborhood that was between two major Ivy League universities. I grew up between
Wow.
Loyola University and
Mm,
Northwestern University. So I
mm,
was always seeing people with backpacks. I was always seeing people going to school. So the idea of school and education was something that was ingrained in me from an early age. But juxtaposed with that image was also the gangs and the violence. All of my friends
mm.
have been assaulted or had some type of, whether it was a gang affiliation or they some type of gang interaction that they didn't welcome.
Mm.
That was always in the background. Also, I was fortunate to not have any type of gang interaction. By the grace of God, He saved me one time. This
Mm.
car full of cholos pulled up, and
Yeah.
they were ready to jump me as it had just jumped all my friends. I had a friend in the hospital at the time, and
Well,
the
wait,
guy,
how old were you at this time? Just out of
I had to be, uh, I was in middle school, so I was
Wow.
like 12. I was
Mm.
about, but that's part of um, that's the side effect of growing up uh, faster than you are and looking older than you are. I've always had facial hair. I've always been tall. I've always had a deep voice. So at the age of 12, I looked like I was 20. I was always mistaken for my mom's husband.
Oh
Uh,
no.
but the side effect of that was that gangs, thought I was formidable. I was a threat,
Mm.
and
Wow.
cops thought I was a threat also, and so they would roll up on me. What gang am I from? Where am I going? That
Mm.
type of harassment. So there were some downsides, but there were some upsides, obviously, to maturing faster than everyone else. So I started off at a public school as a kid, and then in the fourth grade, my mom put us in a Catholic school. So I went from a black, you know, primarily Methodist Baptist school to a white Catholic school.
Wow.
So once again, I'm in this situation where I feel accepted, but I don't feel like I'm a part of. I'm just going with the flow, right? My friends, they're involved in gangs, so I feel like I'm still accepted by my friends, even though I'm not in a gang. But I feel like like these are still my boys, even though I'm not doing what they're doing on some level. And so I go from that to then playing college football. I got a scholarship, and I go from Chicago to Indiana. So once again, Indiana's is it's in the Midwest, but it feels like it's in the South if you've never been. It has a very Southern vibe to it. It's where the KKK started, and close to where my university was. So once again, I felt accepted because I'm an athlete. You know, I was articulate.
Got your scholarship.
I'm friendly. Yeah, absolutely. But I didn't feel a part of. And even growing up, my mom is Belizean, as she's from Central America. So every summer she would take us to Belize, and we would spend our summers down there. And again, I felt accepted by family, by the culture, by the community, but I didn't feel like I was a part of. I didn't, there were open sewers. They had a way of speaking, and my mom didn't want me, my sister and I, to speak with that dialogue or that dialect. So I'm accepted, but I can't be a part of, right? And so it's this whole thing of being being an observer through life. And so the upside, though, of that is that I've learned to adapt and can navigate. I feel like any type of social situation, whether I'm amongst the rich or the poor or the thugs or the saints. Whether I'm in, I've done shows in Pakistan and in Europe and in Asia, and I just got back from Peru. So these are all places where, once again, I felt accepted but never a part of, and so it's allowed me, and I think it's put in me it's planted the seed for me to want to travel the world and visit all 7 continents and see what the world is like and see what people are like, and to realize we're all the same people. After you get over the initial shock, when I was in Egypt, after you get over the initial shock of camels and 10 people on a scooter, and the sounds and the smells and the food, like people are people. It comes down to love and fear. It comes down. It's all about family. That's why when you look at the top grossing movies, it's about family. You look at the Fast and Furious. They're on the Fast and Furious 8 or 9. Why? Because they're talking about family. Even if you're not in the cars, even if you're not in the guns, you're into family. You're into wanting to feel like you belong somewhere and connected. And so these movies that highlight that, Titanic was about love. Who doesn't understand
that
love?
Crosses boundaries.
I say it again.
Love that crosses boundaries, cultural boundaries.
Absolutely. So when we're talking about anything, at the root of all of it, there's always going to be some type of emotion, whether we're talking about love or fear. And so the sooner that we can get to that root, that foundation of either one of those emotions, the sooner we can connect with each other. What do you love? Like two people who love sports, they immediately connect. Two people who love books, they immediately connect. Two people who are afraid of, firecrackers, they bond over that. So love and fear, that's what we should be talking about. And that's how we connect with people throughout the world.
Yeah, greatly said. You touched on so many things there in terms of, and already now I feel like I have a good sense of what you grew up on. And obviously something you kept repeating was, I felt accepted, but not truly, I guess, integrated. Like my opinion was actually central to the environment that I was in. That's what I'm getting at. And I'd say, again, I can only speak for myself as an individual. I can't be the spokesperson for all Black British people. Um, but I guess there are a lot of commonalities that I can relate with, in the sense that, me personally, I've never felt racially attacked as such. Although now looking back on my life, I can see how certain things in the way some of my peers at school treated me might have been racially influenced. But apart from that, I've always felt accepted in one way or another in whatever setting that I've been in. But never true, but more often than not, feeling like if there were certain things I didn't think about, then the other people in the room would not be aware. I've always had to feel like I have to be a spokesperson in some way. Um, and I've always had to learn to adjust before giving my influence, if that makes sense. So it's interesting because I grew up in London. I grew up in, similar to you. It doesn't sound as severe as your Section 8 situation, but I did grow up in a flat as well. It did smell quite a lot of smoke and all sorts of things. When I was little, it smelled like piss to me as well. Smelled pretty bad, and
Yeah.
it was a predominantly sort of ethnic minority area. So this is like near Brixton, South London, and I have mostly positive memories there. I had a friend of mine who was like a Nigerian family, which was on the floor below, and we were good friends with that family. I went. I still remember the boy's name. His name was Tayo, and we used to go to the same school. And yeah, I think when I moved out from there and I moved to Essex, which was kind of East England, still kind of within the London area, but on the border, just outside. That's a much more predominantly white area. And yeah, I just, it was there then that I started to experience bullying in my primary school. So this was when I was about 8 or 9. And looking back, I've realized there was always a group of white boys who was bullying me. I don't know why, but I remember one time, I don't know how this happened, but I had one of my shoes stolen and I never got it back. And I was quite secretive. I think even then, mentally, I felt the drain of being other. At the time, I wasn't aware of any sort of racial component that would have influenced that. But at the time and growing up, I always felt like I was being picked on in some way or shape or form. And I think, I'm sure you can relate to this, that as a black male growing up, it's funny because on one hand, we have this side to us that's very vocal. Hip hop music helps us to find, I guess, a loud identity or this outer shell of confidence, that I guess a lot of it is performed to some extent. But then on the inside, I always felt insecure. I hardly ever told my parents that I was being bullied. And it was only through, I had a childminder who picked me up from school. And literally the kid who was bullying me was right in front. Like, these are parents picking up their children, and he was bullying me right there and then. And it was at that moment that my childminder noticed that I was being bullied. And then she in turn told my parents. So, it was kind of like, it got revealed in a, like, if you don't reveal it yourself, it will be revealed in some other way, shape or form. So that was my experience growing up. And just as you were growing up as well, how did, I guess, your experience as a black person and the different influences that you were exposed to, how did that influence the perception you had of yourself as a man or as a young man growing up, and what it means to be a man, what it means to be emotionally stable? How did your perspective, or how was your perspective on that influenced? And, I guess also tell the story of how you learned to be more aware of your own emotions and to break out of certain cycles of thought that you had about yourself.
Man, that's such a powerful question. And I have to be honest, like, I'm still deciphering and peeling back the layers on how my race affected my perception and my feelings of being a man. I'm very well aware of how it, on some levels, has increased my anxiety and heightened my awareness. And what I mean is, when we're talking about mental health. This is the Mental Roots podcast. As and men in general, some men in general experience this for different reasons.
Definitely.
But as a black man, I experience it. It's almost like a double down of, if I'm walking down the street and there's a woman walking towards me, I'm aware of, I'm a male walking towards a woman. I pose a threat especially if it's late at night and we're the only two. So do I walk out into the streets so that she understands that I'm not a threat and that it's okay for her to pass through? Do I keep walking towards her so that she learns that people who look like me aren't a threat, and so that I don't feel like a threat? And it also is for me also, so that I don't feel like a threat, because I'm assuming that she is interpreting me. I mean, she could know Taekwondo and it could take me down, and I'm just like, I'm a man and she's a woman, and Leo threat, she do, like, I don't know, she might know she could be Ronda Rousey in a hoodie, and I have no idea. So, but I'm aware of that though. I'm aware of that, and so there's a heightened. It brings a certain level of anxiety with that. But you get that with two men walking towards each other at night, of like, is this the guy? Is he a threat? Is he a friend or foe? Right. And so you're not aware of that, and then bring race into it. It's like, depending on what you just saw in the news, that can heighten your own personal awareness. This is why, you have to limit. And I say limit, I don't say ignore the news. Some people will be like, stop watching the news. Well, we have to remain aware.
1 second.
Right.
I've got someone in the room.
Okay, got you. Yeah, bring them in. You got a special guest already. I love it.
It's my little sister.
Bring her in.
But yeah. Oh, no, I'm just going to say something to her quickly. 1 sec. Hello? Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
I promised my sister a game of Scrabble, and she
How
said,
old is she?
She's 9.
Yeah, you can't break that promise now.
So I said definitely we'll do it tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry. So yeah, you were talking about a kind of exposure to the news and keeping the balance.
Because it can heighten your perception of what the world looks like. If you've been watching the news and they're reporting about, a black man did this and a black man robbed that person, and then you start to internalize their idea of what a black man is, and then that it heightens your anxiety in those situations. So we have to be aware of what we're feeding ourselves and the stories and the ideas, and to make sure that we're combating that with positive stories, whether that's through reading books. Like I'm reading Malcolm X and Martin Luther King right now, right? But you don't have to read those guys. It's just any positive black male influence, so that you can plant those seeds and have that as a blueprint of how to move about the world and how to think about yourself, versus the narrative that's painted in social media, which we know is meant to be, for the most part, incendiary and to light us up. They're not there really for us. When I say us, I just mean in general public. They're there to present with mostly salacious news. So to make sure you're feeding your brain things that are nourishing, that make you feel empowered and good about yourself, and bring you a level of peace and serenity. And so as I become more aware of that and more aware of what I'm feeding myself and how I want to think about the world, it's with the idea that I can take race out the picture a bit more, versus filtering everything through race, versus filtering everything through being a man. It's like, how do I move about the world as a person, as an individual? Because when you look into the eyes of your 9-year-old sister, she's not registering, for the most part, race and masculinity and manhood. Like you're just to her, you're a person, and so she's looking to see how do people treat people, right? It's like I know you told your sister you're gonna play Scrabble with her today. I said today, even if it's for 2 minutes, play Scrabble with your sister because she's gonna remember that. She's gonna remember that you made a promise, and she's gonna remember that you broke it, and so that's gonna go into her box of how she filters it. And I have a younger sister, and I remember all the times I said I would do things with her, and then I never did. And I see her, and not that I'm responsible for how she's her interactions with men and her relationships, but I recognize that I'm a part of how she filters men and relationships and people based on how I interacted with her. So all these small, these are the tiny things that we have to pay attention to, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed when we think about the world and its issues. We're talking about global warming, we're talking about the pandemic, we're talking about racial issues, but really the work starts in the home. It starts with the people who are closest to you. It starts with your sister. It starts with your spouse. It starts with your neighbor, right? And because that trickles out, it's like the butterfly effect. And so I don't have to go walk the streets and protest every day. My protest could be making friends with my neighbor who I've never talked to in the 2 years that we've been neighbors. My protest could be spending time with my younger sister, who I got other things more important to do than to play these games. But this relationship is important because down the road, it's going to show up in some form or fashion, right? So it's all about what are the seeds that I can plant around me? What's the little garden I can grow in my backyard or my front yard that's going to make a difference? I don't have to plant gardens in everybody's yard, but what can I do that's close to me to make an impact?
Great points there. Got me feeling guilty about the Scrabble situation, but I mean, I'm joking. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you because even for me personally, you know, even prior to the whole George Floyd situation, I always knew that race issues all over the world, you know, should be addressed. But again, like you said, I realized it all starts with me. It starts with the people I'm closest to. You want to be in it? Are you sure? You want to say hi quickly? My sister wants to say hi quickly.
What's her name?
Lois.
Lois.
Yeah.
Hi, Lois.
I just take my headphones out. You want to say hello?
Hi.
How are you, Lois?
Says, how are you?
How are you?
No, how are you?
Scrabble is your favorite game?
Is it?
No.
No?
It's okay. We've got a few games. So. But you're learning to enjoy it, isn't it? Yeah. She's a bit shy, but...
Are you my brother's friend?
I am. I'm your brother's friend. You know, I just finished today a book about Genghis Khan. And Genghis Khan revered brothers or men that he met as truer brothers than his blood brothers. He would call them an
American?
Yeah, he's American.
Are you in New York?
I'm close to Los Angeles. I'm in California.
Oh, California, I guessed it. There's a YouTuber who lives in California. I watch her YouTube channel.
Who is it? Casey Neistat?
Sophie Dossie.
Oh, Sophie Dossie. Oh.
She's a contortionist on America's Got Talent.
So have you been out here before? Are you going to come see her?
Oh, I wish I could, but I don't know.
All right, one day you put that on your vision board, and I'm sure it'll happen. Put it in your journal.
Okay. Mom's calling you. Yeah? We'll see.
Yes, Mom.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting that, but yeah. I mean, yeah, even family, like you said, is important, and starting with loving those around you, you know, and like you said earlier, the commonalities we have with different types of people. Even if we can't choose our family, there's still common human things that we can connect on, you know, the things we love, the things we're afraid of, etc., etc. So even in this time during lockdown, which is a whole other topic in itself, how lockdown is influencing our mental health and the way we communicate. But I feel for me, definitely, I've been challenged more to spend more time with my brother and my sister. So yeah, it's just little things like that. And that brings me on to, I guess, lockdown. And have you still been able to counsel people over the internet and to coach them? Have any of them been sort of Black people as well? And if so, is there anything you're noticing about how lockdown is influencing certain types of people and compared to how other types of people are dealing with lockdown? Just kind of what are the things that you've been seeing in terms of your life coaching, I guess?
One of the primary things recently has been dealing with their spouse, how to connect with theirs, because a lot of people are either spending less time with their spouse or more time. It's completely exaggerated or completely switched what was happening before. And so teaching my clients and the people I work with, how do they speak? How do they connect? How do they form intimacy and discover new things about this person that they've been with for years and maybe even decades in some cases. But it's always been, they were both getting up, going to work, and then they would see each other at dinner time. And now they're getting up and then they're seeing each other, all day for the most part. And then if they had kids, the kids are home. And now it's like, who does the dishes? Who's going to do the laundry? We're cooking more. We're doing more laundry. We got more chores, and it requires more energy. So, what really has come up is how much energy, how much time do I spend with my significant other? And then how do I take some time to myself without feeling guilty? As you mentioned, right? It's like you love these people you're around, but you at the same time have to figure out how do you take care of yourself so that you can continue to take care of the people around you and be present for them. So we found we always coming up with different tools and strategies. There are three things I would recommend for people who are struggling with self-care and taking some time for themselves. One is...
I'm afraid that is the end of this part of this interview. Stay tuned for the next part of the interview in the next episode. Thanks for listening. Peace.